Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. You see the regular Spike is back. His cousin, who's also named Spike, is off doing other things. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the community of ex-JWs. And there has been discussion about whether or not there's a community in the past. And there is a community. It's one that people may choose to join or choose not to join. And there are different communities, meaning that there's more than one. So, in that community, there are people that are really good friends, and there are people that are deeply hurt, and there are people that are really not good friends. So when you leave a high control group, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, oftentimes you need to replace that community, especially in the case of Jehovah's Witnesses, because they make themselves the only community that you have. So when you leave that community, you have to find something else to replace it. And for those who have a similar experience, it's easy to form a community as ex-JWs. And that is what happens, at least for some. So some choose to join the community, some choose not to. And myself, my experience with people that have been former Jehovah's Witnesses that I have met is that they've been really good friends. I have a lot of people that I've met that I get along with great. We have things in common. We have a great time. We're not judgmental of each other. We don't impose our opinions on each other. We don't force people to think the way we do. But this experience is not the only experience that you can have with former Jehovah's Witnesses. There are those who may present themselves very well, but when you get to know them, they insist that you agree with them in a lot of things. And if you don't, they can become abusive. And there can be a lot of reasons for this. One of the reasons might be that some of these individuals might have issues that they're dealing with that perhaps they're not acknowledging. Perhaps these are mental or emotional issues. Perhaps people have been scarred and damaged by their time under the influence of Watchtower. Because the truth of the matter is that we've all been scarred and damaged by any amount of time that we've spent in the Watchtower. And we each have our different ways of dealing with this. So when we leave such an abusive high control group, the last thing we need to be, or the last thing we need to do, is get into another situation in which we're being abused. So it's unfortunate, but the reality is that there are some people in some parts of or in their own ex-JW communities that tend to be abusive, or that can be abusive. And the thing that's surprising about this is these people present themselves as something that's not abusive in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm not bringing this out to assign blame to people, but I'm bringing this out just to raise awareness of the situation. So when you walk away from the abuse of a high control group, the last thing you need to do is to get abused by former members of said high control group, or of any high control group, or for that matter, you don't need to be abused by anybody at all. But sadly, these things happen sometimes. My honest belief is that this is not because individuals set out to be that way. I believe that it's either because they have issues that they're dealing with that perhaps they don't realize, or perhaps because they have been damaged themselves by their time in the high control group. So that being the case, how do you deal with these situations? Well, I'm going to fall back on what I know about these situations, which is not very much. But myself, I've been in situations with individuals that could become abusive and that could become confrontational. And some individuals that I've dealt with got to the point where when there were disagreements, it would escalate really fast. And the only way for me to discontinue that disagreement was to physically remove myself from the situation. I either had to leave the room, I had to leave the building, or I had to hang up the phone and not return calls. Because situations would get to the point where they were out of hand. No matter how hard I would try to be reasonable, it never mattered. The fight would continue. So I just had to step away. And unfortunately, this might be the case with some people that we run into in the ex-JW community. There could be people that have problems or issues whereby they perceive themselves being attacked, and they respond in a very aggressive manner. And their response could be abusive. And if such a situation cannot be moderated, can't be calmed down, you might find yourself in a place where you just have to back away from interaction with that particular individual. So that might be something that happens for a while. It might be that you can back away, things calm down, then you can re-engage. Because the last thing I want to advocate is shunning people, because we've all just left a group where people get shunned. So I am by no means advocating shunning people. But there are some people that have conditions that cause them to basically lose control such that they can no longer react on a rational level. And those individuals can be very damaging and very abusive without trying to be. So for those of us who have walked away from a situation, we don't want to get ourselves into another situation where we're allowing somebody else to abuse us. And if we find ourselves in those situations, the best thing for our own health might just be to back away from that particular interaction. So I just wanted to put that out there as a thought, because myself, I have never had one of these situations with anybody in the community, but there's a lot of people that I have not interacted with. And I'm not here to accuse anybody. I'm just here to try to offer what I think or hope could be a helpful solution, and you can decide for yourself what to do about that. But another thing I wanted to talk about too is when I was waking up, one of the biggest things that I needed to know that other people had gone through similar things. I needed to understand how they dealt with it. I wanted to hear their stories. What did they go through when they were a JW? What was their life like? What types of things did they do? All that type of stuff. I wanted to know what other people's stories were. Why was it that all of a sudden they one day or over a period of time decided that Jehovah's Witnesses was not the religion for them? And the reason for this is because we were taught and literally ingrained with a fact that if you left Jehovah's Witnesses, it was because you were an evil person who had no desire but to do bad. So I needed to hear stories of other people who had left, because I needed that reinforcement. After decades of being told one thing, I needed reinforcement of what I already know. And I'm bringing this out because there's a channel that I started listening to early on, and I listened to often, and I thoroughly enjoyed the way that the stories were told. I was intrigued by the stories I heard. It was very engaging. It was very beneficial. The channel I'm talking about is, of course, JWfairytale. That channel stands as a legend these days. A lot of people watch that, follow that, and we have been enthralled by the stories that have been told. We've laughed, we've cried, we've been brought back to times in our own memory. JWfairytale has such a great story. He has such a great way of telling that story. He has such a great way of pointing out the obvious in a way that's funny. The movies that he's made have been incredible. I particularly liked, I believe it was JWfairytales 3, whereby he assaulted the resurrected ones with firecrackers. I thought that was really funny. That was great. And the Dio soundtrack, that was pretty good too. I like that. I like his taste in music. It's very similar to my own. I've been inspired by this channel, and I've been enriched by listening to his stories. He has a way of expressing himself that's deep. It conveys a lot of emotion. It conveys a lot of thought. But it also conveys the hurt and the pain of what it is like to try to acclimate to life after waking up from decades of indoctrination. And it conveys the reality of what it's like to have a family and grow up in the indoctrination of Jehovah's Witnesses. And there's a lot that we can all identify with there, and I've really appreciated the way that he's expressed himself. I appreciate all the work that he's put into his channel over the years, and I just want to take this time to thank JWfairytale for all that he's done. His contribution is something that has helped many and will continue to help many, because his channel on YouTube is always there for people to find, for people to listen to, for people to hear. And I just wanted to thank him for everything that he's done. I wanted to let him know that he is appreciated, he is loved, and I am very thankful that I had the privilege of watching his channel. And I wanted to put that out there. So there's lots of good channels. We all take away a lot from them. But I just wanted to give that shout out to JW Fairy Tale. So thanks for watching. That's my video for this time.